In this week's Technique Tuesday video, I'll demonstrate an attractive double decrease that's commonly used in fully fashioned commercial knitwear. If you'd like to jump to a specific point in the video, there are direct links down in the description. This turtleneck sweater is a very fine gauge, commercially knit garment, and it is a fully fashioned garment. And what is meant by that is that the garment pieces were shaped as they were knit using increases and decreases, and those increases and decreases are visible. Now it's hard to see right here, so I'm going to zoom in. So what you can see here is we have the seam line here, and then we have several stitches. We have two columns of plain stockinette stitches, and then the decreases are right here. And you can see that these decreases sort of lean toward the edge, and that's true on both sides of the seam. In both cases, we have two columns of stockinette stitch, and then we have these decreases that are leaning toward the edge. In hand knitting, we often tell knitters to place their increases and decreases away from the selvage stitch. And that is so that when the selvage stitches are seamed or stitches are picked up around the edge, you'll have one clean line of stitches that will lie on the inside of the garment. And so here you can see that the decrease line right here was placed two stitches away from the edge. So the selvage stitch is on the inside of the garment, then I have a line of stockinette stitches right next to the seam line, and then I've placed the decreases here. But in this case, I have the decreases pointing away from the edge. For this seam, I place the decreases again two stitches away from the edges. So the selvage stitch lies on the inside of the garment. I have a column of plain stockinette stitches right next to the seam, and then I've worked my decreases so that they point toward the edge, just as they are in that commercially knit garment I showed you first. But what's different is the type of decrease that I used. In this case, I was using a single decrease that was leaning toward the edge. At this edge, it would be a knit two together, and at this edge, I used an SSK. So these are single decreases. In this swatch, I used the same types of decreases that were used in that commercially knit turtleneck sweater. And these decreases are a special type of double decrease. They're not the typical type of double decrease where three stitches are reduced down to one stitch. In this case, we've got four stitches that are reduced down to two stitches. And it's the type of decrease that is sometimes used when transitioning from cabled fabric to a different type of stitch pattern where you need to reduce the number of stitches and you do it in a cable crossing. So in fully fashioned commercial garments, the decreases are typically placed further away from the edge than you might place them when you were working your hand knitting. So frequently with hand knitting, we work one stitch and then we might work a decrease, or in the case of the two garments I showed you before, I worked two stitches and then I worked a decrease. In this situation, we're going to work a third stitch, and now we're going to work the decrease, and we're going to work the decrease using the next four stitches. So we're going to slide the first two stitches onto a cable needle, and then we're going to hold it in the back. We're going to join one stitch from the front needle, inserting our needle through that, and then we're going to insert our needle through the first stitch on the second needle. So we've got our needle through two different stitches, one on each needle. We're going to pick or wrap the yarn, whichever way you do it. We're going to pull it through that stitch on the back needle, let that stitch come off. I'm holding on to the other one with my finger so it won't come out. Then I come back through the stitch on the front needle and I let that one slide off. So I've joined those two stitches together, and now I'm going to do the same thing on the second needle, and this time I'm going to switch my hand so you can see how you do it if you hold the yarn in your right hand. So again, you would insert through the first stitch on the front needle and through the remaining stitch on the back needle. And then you would wrap your yarn and you would bring it through both stitches. So you can bring it through both stitches and then let them off the needle, or you can bring them off one stitch at a time and then let each needle fall off. Now we've reduced those 4 stitches down to 2 stitches, and we're going to work across the rest of the row until there are 7 stitches remaining. So we've got the 3 stitches where the decrease won't be worked, and then we've got these 4 stitches where we're going to work the decrease at the other edge. So you need to work until there are 7 stitches remaining. So once again, I use my cable needle and slip the first 2 stitches onto the needle. So this time the cable needle is in front, and we insert through the first stitch of each needle, and we bring the yarn through each one. So then we insert through the first stitch on each needle again, pull it through, and let it come off. And then we can complete the end. It's an attractive way of doing a double decrease, and whether you place it as far from the edge as I've done here, or perhaps another stitch closer, is really up to you. As a hand knitter, you're free to make choices about which decreases you would like to use, where you'd like to place them, and whether you want them to lean toward the edge or away from the edge. The 4 to 2 stitch decrease I showed you here today is yet another choice you have for customizing your hand knits. If you enjoy my Technique Tuesday videos, you can show your support and appreciation by buying me a coffee on Ko-fi. If you have any comments or questions about today's video, or suggestions for videos you'd like to see in the future, you can leave those down in the comments below, or join the discussion in my Ravelry group, Rocks. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week.